And to discuss American politics in more detail, I'm joined now by Dr. Geoffrey Garrett, the founding CEO of the United States Studies Centre and Professor of Political Science at the University of Sydney. Thanks very much for joining the world.
My pleasure, Bridget.
Now, the latest polls, I think I saw a report on Friday, it must have been on Friday night, suggests that the House of Representatives will go to the Republicans. The only uncertainty is, of course, is by how many seats. What's your prediction?
Well, we're looking at a 7 or 8% swing in the country. How that translates in individual seats remains to be seen. But I think the Republicans are staring at a good, solid working majority of 20 or 30 seats in the House of Representatives. The bigger question is how many seats the Democrats will lose in the Senate.
And what's your prediction there? And could they, still retain power in the Senate? Or?
Yeah, retain power, of course, in the Senate's a bit more complicated. You need 60 votes out of 100 in the Senate to be filibuster-proof. The Democrats already don't have that. They've got 59 today. They'll probably end up at the end of this election with 51 or 52, so still a majority, but they will have lost the House of Representatives to the Republicans.
And what, of course, does that mean? Going forward, making decisions, running the country?
Well, in a parliamentary system, of course, this would look very strange. But I think the irony here is that for the last 2 years, Barack Obama has actually looked more like a prime minister in a parliamentary system. It was his Democrats in Congress. Now he won't be controlling Congress anymore, and that'll give him the opportunity to be the leader of the country against Congress, which is not a very popular institution in the US.
I'll come to specifics and some would call problems with Barack Obama in a minute, but an American ABC poll today found that the gap between the two parties has narrowed in recent days and that the Democrats are pulling back some of that double-digit Republican lead. Have you seen any evidence of this?
Well, as I said, it's really hard to tell because what they do in the United States translates better here than it does there. Is they do these national polls plus polls of individual seats. There are 435 seats in the House. So it's really a guess translating big national swings into seat counts. Have things tightened? Maybe they have. The biggest stories of late have been the fact that the governor in California and the Senate seat in California, which could have been big Republican wins, are now looking like Democrat holds, which I think will be bad for the news. There'll be fewer big stories, but it was probably predictable all along.
Did the Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert rally at the weekend help?
Who knows who it helped or hurt. This was great theatre. And the interesting thing at the moment is that even people on the left are saying, listen, Jon Stewart, you command all of these, you command so many voters, how can you just poke fun at the system? You should be in there doing something a little more serious.
Look, how much is this a message directed at Barack Obama himself?
Well, I think all the headlines will say this is a midterm referendum on Obama that's bound to be a negative referendum. Is that fair or not? Hard question. On the one hand, Obama has actually done a lot. He got out of Iraq. He did an enormous fiscal stimulus less than a month into office. He passed the biggest healthcare reform in 50 years and the biggest financial reform in 70 years. But none of that matters because the headline American unemployment rate is near 10%. A third of Americans owe more on their homes than those homes are worth, and 1 in 7 Americans is in poverty. It's pretty hard to win in that environment. Having
said that, lots of the problems were created or, were in place when the Republicans were there. Why is it that it is so targeted at Barack Obama, and is it a failure of the Democrats not being able to turn this around on the Republicans as well?
Well, there's a criticism of Obama. It's an ironic criticism that says this guy who was the best campaigner on earth 2 years ago cannot now connect with people and all he can do is read from a teleprompter. I think that's probably a little harsh. What we know from elections in Australia, in the US, other countries, is that voters are irrational gods of vengeance and reward. When things are going well, they tend to look fondly on you. When things are going terribly, they beat you up, and that's what's going to happen to the Democrats.
And of course, obviously, traditionally, after the first term, the midterm elections into the first term, I think it was in 1994 when Clinton during the midterms and the Democrats did very badly, that it's not unusual for them not to perform well. So and to lose seats. So is this are these midterm elections going to be any worse than what we've seen in the past?
Well, they might actually be a little better in vote terms than for Clinton in 1994, because Clinton's Democrats lost control of the Senate as well as the House. But I think Obama will be hoping for a Clinton-esque recovery in his presidency. After Clinton lost in 94, he went to the centre. He was no longer the leader of his party. He was defending the national interests against Congress. He did more on the foreign policy stage. And, of course, he was re-elected in 1996 in a landslide. So that's what Obama's hoping for, I think.
So come 2012, what about, though, 2012, Sarah Palin versus Obama?
Okay, so I think that's the other story here, that, we hear a lot that the Republicans are worried about the success of the Tea Party. Why is that? I think one of the reasons is that a fired-up Republican base could now really think that Sarah Palin or somebody like her could be elected president in 2012. So the better the Tea Party does, the better the Republicans do, the more likely Sarah Palin will be the Republican nominee in 2012. But I don't think anybody, probably even Sarah Palin, thinks she has much of a chance against Barack Obama.
Well, it'll be an interesting 2 years. Thanks very much for joining us tonight.
You're most welcome.
That's Dr. Geoffrey Garrett.